Hey guys, tonight we step into a place where the floor growls, the air clings to your skin, and the laughter hits harder than the ale. Somewhere between a fireplace and a fight, you've just found the Medieval Tavern less of a building, more of a living creature that smells like smoked stew and someone's very bad decisions. You won't need a map. Just follow the shouting, the singing, and the occasional chicken that may or may not be employed here. The locals are friendly if you define friendly as willing to arm wrestle you for half a loaf of bread. Spoiler alert, you won't survive your first round unless your constitution score is emotionally reinforced by soup. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know down in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. I always love seeing who's out there across time zones sneaking into this story with us. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just stepped into the tavern. The wooden door creaks shut behind you in a long, drawn-out groan, almost as if it wants to be part of tonight's performance. Within 3 seconds, every one of your senses is under attack, the smell of smoke, damp wool, spilled ale, and something else, possibly meat. Possibly not. The ceiling is so low that if you're taller than 5'7", congratulations, you're about to embark on an involuntary neck-hunching experience. The floor is strewn with straw, not the romantic countryside kind. This is the type of straw that tells you something has happened here. And though no one says it aloud, you instinctively understand, don't look too closely. There are no private tables, no menus, and certainly no such thing as quiet. This place operates in only 2 modes: loud or on fire. Fortunately, tonight, it's just loud. You weave between a few wobbly tables, dodge a man mid-argument about a swapped chicken, and stop in front of a bench near the hearth. It looks empty. Or maybe it's just still damp, for reasons you'd rather not investigate. You sit down. The wood creaks. The bench leg tilts slightly, as if weighing the pros and cons of betraying you right now. Someone at the next table glances up at you with the dreamy look of a man who's either on his 7th drink or has forgotten what a chair is. He nods. You nod back. Social interaction here is minimal, mostly eye contact, hand gestures, or bread. In the corner of the room, a one-eyed dog is gnawing on a bone like it pays rent. On the floor, at least 3 people are sleeping, either too drunk or simply resigned to their fate. And you know what? You haven't had a single sip yet, but you already feel strangely at ease. According to a medieval record, taverns were never just about drinking. They were information hubs, trading floors, theaters, and courtrooms all rolled into one. Meaning you could land a job, hear the latest gossip, recover lost items or lost people, and get punched all in a single evening. Historians still debate whether taverns were truly as wild as the legends suggest, or if it was all just the booze talking off into a fish or so, some claim. And then there's one small but fascinating theory: perhaps most policies and historical mistakes were born right here. You glance around. Crooked chairs. Ale pooled on the floor. Someone's recounting a story about meeting a dragon. No one laughs. Maybe because they believe it. Maybe because they're just waiting their turn to lie. A mug is placed in front of you. No one asks what you want. No one hands you a menu. Drinks here generally fall into 2 categories: alcoholic and dangerous. You lift it, take a sniff. Smells like beer wood and maybe dill. Either way, you didn't come here for the flavor. You came to survive and to hear stories. And if you're lucky, to become part of one. You're sitting on that creaky bench, beer warming slightly in your hand, and not in a pleasant way when your stomach speaks up. A low, unmistakable growl. I need something that isn't fermented. You scan the room for a menu. Huh. Cute. Here, the menu is a short conversation, usually 2 lines. Got anything to eat? Yeah. But don't ask questions. After a minute's wait or longer, depending on the cook's mood, a bowl is placed in front of you. Heavy, hot, steaming. And it smells like nothing in particular. Just the sense that it's lived a long life before getting here. This is pottage, the quintessential medieval stew. No one really knows what it started out as. Barley, maybe. Beans, perhaps. Or something that used to be barley or beans in a previous life. The ingredients of pottage are never written down simply because they change daily or hourly. Every time someone in the kitchen spots something still edible, they toss it into the pot, and no one takes anything out. What you're eating could very well be the accumulated result of 3 days of rain, 2 rabbits, and 1 onion that saw something it shouldn't have. You give it a gentle stir. Something floats to the top. Looks like a turnip. Might also be a tired turmeric root. A chunk of something that resembles meat. It's unclear what kind, but at least it's been cooked long enough to no longer pose a threat. Pottage is not meant to be savored. It's an experience, a journey away to tell your stomach, I tried. You take a spoonful, warm, rich, a hint of grass. Not in a fresh green vegetables way, but more like a cow once stood nearby. And strangely enough, you start to feel better. This thing, despite all the rumors, soothes you. Maybe it's the warmth. Maybe it's the fact that it's thick enough to build a house with. But in the smoky air and through the scattered laughter, the pottage becomes a gentle hand on your shoulder saying, "It's all right." Not the finest meal, but at least it's not trying to kill you. Someone next to you grins, lifting his bowl like a trophy. He says meat tastes better tonight. At least it's not hairy anymore. No one objects. Someone claps. Another bursts out laughing and spills the entire bowl down his shirt. That's what counts as morale around here. According to records from the Anglo-Saxon period, pottage was considered the most versatile meal, breakfast, dinner, and a creative way to use up anything in the kitchen that hadn't learned to walk yet. Some pottage pots were kept simmering for an entire week with new ingredients added daily. Villagers called it cooking. Modern historians call it a microbiological miracle. Naturally, archaeologists still debate whether pottage was a sign of culinary innovation or simply surrendering to destiny. You're halfway through. Your stomach has stopped complaining. Inside you brews a very specific sensation. Not delicious, not awful, just survival. You sit there, warm bowl in hand, and for the first time you really see where you are. The taverns. Architecture, how to describe it, is a mix between accidental design and a framed disaster. Looking around, you realize this place wasn't built. It grew like a mushroom after the rain. Every wall leans in a different direction as if they once disagreed, but then collectively decided, well, let's just stand like this. There's a wooden beam running across the ceiling, or at least it used to run across. Now it seems to be bowing slightly, perhaps preparing to apologize before it falls. You glance up at the ceiling, low-coated in soot, and clearly marked by water damage that's been seeping through for many seasons. One could estimate the tavern's age just by counting the stains and dividing by 2. A lantern hangs precariously from a frayed rope, looking very much like it's holding hands one last time, the floor. It's dirt, not quaint wooden planks like in the movies. Real dirt, soft, damp, and in some spots it seems to respond to your footsteps. Straw is scattered across it, not to clean, but to pretend to clean. When was that straw last replaced? Probably the year Halley's Comet passed by. As for the furniture, hard to say. Some chairs have 4 legs, some have 3. One you just saw is clearly an upside-down barrel. One chair looks like it used to be part of a bed. Might still be part of a bed if you lie down carefully enough. There's no clear bar area. Just a thick wooden plank laid across 2 ale barrels. Upon it, wooden mugs, clay cups, and a bucket. You don't ask what the bucket's for. Trust me. Don't ask. Behind the plank is the tavern keeper, the one who pours the ale, maintains order, and somehow remembers exactly who owes what with no notes at all. Modern historians are still baffled by this skill. They call it tavern memoria phenomenon that defies explanation, bordering on the supernatural. In one corner is a staircase leading to the upper floor. Calling it a floor is generous. The staircase is warped, groaning with a handrail looser than a drunkard's loyalty. A boot dangles from a wooden post. Warning, decoration, lost shoe. No one knows. No one touches it. As for windows, it's unclear whether they exist anymore. Maybe they once did. Now there are only a few foggy shards of glass patched up with oiled cloth animal hide and hope. A bit of moonlight seeps through, mixing with dust and smoke, casting a haze so eerie you wonder what century you're in. And then you realize something despite the tavern's architecture clearly conceived by a council of the inebriated it works. People come and go, ale flows, laughter echoes, and somehow the place doesn't collapse. And that is the art. Not beautiful, not symmetrical, not logical, but alive. As if the building itself is a character old stubborn and prone to grumbling in creaky wood speak. You lean back against the wall on second thought. Maybe don't take a breath and think, yeah, it'll probably make it till morning. Probably. Still lulled by the warmth of the pottage, you begin to notice more than just the sounds, you notice the people. Each person here feels like a forgotten book in an attic, dusty, but impossible to ignore. To your left, a farmer with a face as red as kiln-fired brick is passionately retelling the story of how his cow gave birth sideways. Everyone's heard it 3 times. No one dares stop him, partly out of respect, partly because he's holding a paring knife. He laughs heartily and slaps your back like you're an old friend or perhaps a pig he once raised from birth. In the far corner, a man in a dark cloak sits alone, gripping his mug like it holds national secrets. He doesn't speak, doesn't smile, just stares into the fire. Some say he's a runaway monk. Others say he was an assassin. Most agree he's just really bad at small talk. Near the hearth, an old soldier in scratched armor is recounting a battle that quite obviously never happened. In his version, there were dragons, glowing swords, even French wizards who could dance with fire. No one believes him. No one needs to. He speaks, they laugh, and someone tops off his mug. Next to you, a merchant is loudly trying to sell salt as if he's auctioning off an entire province. No one's interested. No one stops him. He's the kind of person who, when asked what time it is, will reply with salts on discount today. Nearby, 2 villagers are playing dice with the intensity of military strategists. One of them is clearly cheating. The other clearly knows and lets it slide. Why? Maybe waiting for the right moment to throw a punch. Or maybe the next drink. And then there's the bard in the corner plucking his lute with half confidence, half accuracy. The song seems to be a love ballad. Probably. Could also be about a lost chicken, unrequited affection, and boiled corn. Either way, at least he's wearing pants a bar not cleared by last night's performer. You spot a woman in a red dress, eyes sharp as a peeling knife, smiling sweetly at a drunken man right before deftly lifting his coin pouch without spilling a single drop of ale. The other gentlemen see this and subtly adjust their own pouches. Children are here too. They dart between adult legs like tiny ghosts, nibbling stolen bread and snatching up fallen coins from the floor. No one chases them. No one scolds. This is the tavern's rhythm. Someone sighs, someone sneezes, and the whole table on the left tilts their heads in unison to dodge the dust. And you, the newcomer, need only sit still to become part of tonight's play. No one asks where you're from. No one needs to know. Here, people only ask, what are you drinking? What story can you tell, and if necessary? Can you run fast? Because sometimes all it takes is one wrong glance, one suspiciously lucky dice roll, or one joke about someone's mother, and this whole place can erupt into a waltz of flying chairs and shattered mugs. But not yet. Right now, people are still laughing, and the tavern strange, chaotic alive, like a dream that smells of old ales, breathing steadily like a creature in its sleep. You see him before you realize you've seen him. Not because he shouts, though he could in 3 different octaves, but because he occupies space the way a large table or a thunderstorm might. The tavern master. No one says his name. No one needs to. Here he's not just the barkeep. He's the referee, the judge, the cook, the makeshift medic, the morning prophet, and the keeper of debts by night. He stands behind the makeshift plank known as the bar, with arms as thick as table legs and eyes that could scrub the dust from your soul. His apron was once white, probably. Now it's the color of ale smoke and slowly dwindling patience. His frame isn't fat. It's dense, as if he were forged from meat oak and a blacksmith god's poorly timed decision. His broad hands are always in motion, one pouring ale, the other pointing at a man trying to sneak out without paying. No one dares not turn back. And then there's that gaze. Not angry. No. It's the look of someone who's seen it all. Someone who's wiped blood from straw before breakfast, delivered a goat in the middle of dinner rush, and once watched a man try to flirt with a chair. Now he looks at you as if to ask silently, "What time will you become a problem?" The most terrifying part. He remembers everything. Who paid, who didn't. Who's been owing since 3 weeks ago, and who spilled soup on the back wall. He doesn't write anything down. He doesn't ask twice. He just knows. Once someone asked him, "How do you remember all that?" He simply replied, "I don't need to remember. I count the dreams of those who don't pay." You chuckle nervously. He doesn't. Still, there are moments when he laughs. And when he does, it feels like a landslide, warm, heavy, and just a little dangerous. But truth be told, if you respect the tavern, hell be your most loyal ally. Trouble. He reaches for the wooden stick behind the bar, a hefty log worn smooth at one end from frequent contact with skulls. Historians still argue about the social role of tavern keepers in medieval communities. Some say they were just innkeepers. Others, especially those who once owed them for Ali, insist they were part-time security, part-time night watchmen, and full-time witnesses to every loud breakup within 50 miles. Regardless, one thing is certain. The tavern keeper doesn't need a crown. He has a stick. And everyone understands what that means. You spot the boy rushing past, carrying 2 ale jugs as large as an unemployed knight's dreams. No one calls him by name. Maybe he doesn't have one. Maybe he forgot it. Around here, people just say, "There he is. Hey, kid." Or simply, "Bring that here." He's the tavern keeper's assistant, the only one who works more than the keeper himself, despite being half the size and seemingly never allowed to sleep. Thin as a cursed broomstick and quick as a mosquito on caffeine, he moves with chaotic precision. One second he's carrying a tray of soup, blink, and he's cleaning up a puddle of vomit near the window. Look away for a moment and he's chasing a chicken out of the kitchen. Yes, a chicken. Why? Who knows? He doesn't complain. He doesn't mutter. He just breathes through his ears and glides through the madness like someone who grew up inside a mild tornado. His eyes are dull, but alert, as if calculating whether the table you're sitting at will collapse before or after the soup is served. Sleeves rolled up, skinny arms exposed, and yet he just lifted a beer barrel so massive it makes you question the laws of physics. There are rumors that he's the tavern keeper's adopted son. Others say he's working off a debt from a past life. Some believe he was once a wizard's apprentice until he accidentally blew up the lab and now mixes ales instead of potions. Whatever the truth, you look at him and think, yeah, no one asked his opinion when the deal was made. He works silently, remembers every order, dodges blows like a ninja, and can use a single glance to say, "Don't touch that bread, I know exactly who it's for." He doesn't speak much, but sometimes he mumbles softly to himself, just loud enough not to wake demons, but loud enough for you to catch fragments. "Spilled again, huh? That chair's broken, man. Yeah, go ahead and sneak out. Well, see." According to a medieval writer who still owed money for ale assistants like him, were the invisible pillars of every tavern. Unrecognized. Underpaid. But if they stopped working for even 10 minutes, the entire tavern would burst into flames, melt, and then start smoking literally. He glides past you once more, holding a rag meant to clean something best left undescribed. Before disappearing into the kitchen, he gives you a quick glance, tired, brief, but sharp, as if to say, "Watch that chair. And don't order anything with eggs." Then he vanishes into the kitchen, like a breeze that smells of fried grease and chronic workplace anxiety. You're sipping the last bit of your suspiciously colored ale when the atmosphere in the tavern shifts. It begins with a slightly too loud comment. Then the screech of a chair being pulled back, a sound that in this place translates directly to, "I'm about to do something stupid." You glance to your left. 2 men are standing face to face. One of them has just won a dice game that, from what you could see, the dice hadn't even finished rolling. The other looks like a man who just discovered his wife, and the neighbor's goat disappeared at the same time. No one explains what's happening. They don't need to. In this tavern, the motivation is often simply, why not? Then it begins. A mug of ale flies past your head, not hitting you, but close enough to make you duck with your ancestors' instincts. Someone yells, "Save my bread." A chair sails through the air like a meteor made of oak, smashing into a wall that was already broken. The wall, as you suspected, doesn't react. It's used to this. The bard immediately changes key, from a love song to the rhythm of war drums. You don't know how, but the background music for a tavern brawl always starts at just the right moment. The tavern keeper, like a god stepping out of a storm cloud, bellows from behind the bar, "Don't touch the new pottery." A random patron completely unrelated to the conflict dives into the fray as if his life had been missing bricks to crash into. There's shouting, thudding, and a tragic cry, "Oh no, that was my soup." Someone crawls under the table. Someone climbs on the table. Someone uses the table. The scene devolves into a chaotic ballet with props including mugs, daggers, and a suspicious-looking sausage. Modern historians often debate, did tavern brawls really happen this often in the Middle Ages? Archaeologists respond by pointing at fractured bones found beneath layers of straw. And you, having just dodged a blow-air, convinced, yes, absolutely real. The tavern keeper doesn't intervene right away. He watches. Like a seasoned general, he waits for the perfect moment when someone tries to climb onto the bar to explain their reasoning. Boom! A single crack from the argument resolution stick, swift, efficient, and final. As a divine warning. No one dies. Someone might have lost a tooth. No one cries. But someone under the table starts laughing for reasons unknown. And miraculously, 10 minutes later, everything is back to normal. Ale is being poured again. Chairs are replaced with things chair-like. The bard switches back to ballads, and the two men who are ready to fight are now sharing bread like nothing ever happened. In this tavern, fighting is part of the menu. You don't order it, you don't get a refund. But everyone knows. If there's no brawl tonight, was it even a real night? You think modern drinking has variety. Quirky cocktails, salt-rimmed sips, dry January for health reasons. The Middle Ages looks at you and laughs with its gums. Here, drinking isn't just a habit, it's a religion. And their gods often dwell at the bottom of a beer barrel. They drank all the time. Morning drink, noon drink more, evening drink even more. Can't sleep in the middle of the night. Drink. To fall back asleep. Children. Yes, them too. Because water often carried enough bacteria to summon the god of death while beer was actually safer. Imagine growing up on Bud Light instead of water and not being allowed to complain. And it wasn't just beer. The medieval drink menu could include beer, warm, cloudy, possibly with hair in it. Mead, fermented honey. Sounds fancy, but occasionally exploded due to active fermentation. Cider, fermented apple juice, sometimes from apples that fell off the tree 3 weeks ago. And a special wine known as the Taste of Disappointment, aged in oak. No shots, no mixers, no bartenders in vests. Just a clay jug and the nagging suspicion it hasn't been washed since last harvest. And you think being drunk nowadays is no big deal. Try being so drunk you forget how chairs work. At this tavern, it's common to see someone sit down on nothing and stay seated like the floor was an old friend from childhood. Some drinking customs were unique. The winner of the dice game had to drink as a reward. Why? Probably to keep things fair, or to reduce cheating skills after the third round. The last one to finish their drink had to tell a story, usually half made up, half stolen, like I once saved a princess from a dragon. Then I married the princess horse. Long story, never mind. And if someone refused to drink, the only logical question was, are you a French spy? They even had their own drinking units. A sip equals half a mug. A mug, it was one full chug until your eyes water. Drink like the Viking next to you, ill occupational hazard. And if you thought pub crawls were a modern idea, nope. Medieval folks drank from one tavern to another until they lost their horse, their friends, and occasionally their pants. It's no accident the term hungover has been around since the 14th century. Researchers still debate, did medieval people drink to survive or survive to drink? The answer, if there's still beer, there's still life. And how do you imagine medieval beer brewing? A clean room, gleaming stainless steel, the scent of malt in the air, engineers in white coats checking pH levels in the Middle Ages. A dark kitchen corner, a pot the size of a bathtub, and a dog asleep next to the fermentation vat like it owns the place. Beer back then wasn't called craft beer. It was hope you don't die beer. You didn't drink it to experience fruity notes and an oaky finish. You drank it to survive, and if it tasted good, that was a miracle. Ingredients: water from a river, a well, or the rain. Preferably the kind without a dead fish floating in it. Grains, usually barley oats or whatever seed hadn't been eaten by mice. Yeast, not bought in shops. It came from the air or was scraped from the bottom of the last brew barrel. Basically, they brewed beer using memory. Spices, whatever was available, herbs, bits of bark, sometimes mustard. Why? Because someone said so. And because Google didn't exist to stop them. And of course, the one essential ingredient, fire. Big hot, and completely unregulated. Plus, an old woman muttering something while stirring the pot. The process. Boil the grains in water, stirring until it smells like porridge that's 2 days past forgiveness. Pour it into a wooden barrel, just rinse it a little, let it cool, and then let it ferment for a few days near the hearth by the chicken coop or wherever divine intervention seemed most likely. Occasionally stir it by hand with a wooden spoon or a branch freshly torn from a nearby tree. If it starts to bubble and has a slightly sour smell, congratulations. If the foam turns green and smells like a giant's foot, you can still drink it, but be prepared to meet gods you've never heard of. After a few days or weeks, if someone forgot about it, the brew is poured into wooden jugs. No filtering, no sterilizing. If you see strange objects in your cup, that's protein, or a bug, or maybe a leftover memory from the last batch. Some families had their own brewing recipes passed down through generations along with the sacred advice, if the beer tastes like the last one, good. If it tastes different, drink it anyway. Waste not. Monasteries, on the other hand, brewed beer like it was a theological mission. Their brews were more refined, cleaner, at least cleaner than a horse stable, and flavored with herbs called groot to enhance the taste. So, if you wanted to drink without having to say a prayer first, go to a monastery. Today, modern craft brewers try to recreate the taste of medieval brews. They call it heritage beer. But medieval folks would have called it, "Yeah, I made that yesterday. Still alive. Drink it. Now you're full or not drunk almost certainly, and your eyelids are as heavy as an overturned wooden mug. It's time for sleep. But wait and dream of soft pillows, clean mattresses, or a peaceful slumber under goose feather blankets. This is a medieval tavern. Here, sleeping well means no one steps on your face in the middle of the night. The upper floor, where dreams come with allergies. You climb the creaking wooden stairs, each step whispering, "I can't take another person," but somehow it does. Barely. Just enough to keep you living in suspense. The hallway is narrow, the ceiling low, and the slope as steep as your will to live after 3 jugs of mead. There's something hanging on the wall. Maybe it's art. Maybe it's a handprint. No one checks. You're shown to a room. Calling it a room is generous, it's more like a wooden box with a bed. And the bed is a masterpiece of resignation. A lopsided wooden frame, a mattress stuffed with straw feathers and crushed dreams. It's flat in the sense that it offers 0 bounce, and its creaking could earn it a role in a panic-themed symphony. You lie down only to realize there's something hard lodged beneath your shoulder blade. The smell of onions and old feet wafts gently into your nose, and the sound, the snoring. Not the gentle kind of snoring. This is siege engine level snoring. To your left, a farmer sleeps clutching a spoon like it's a loved one. To your right, a stranger is talking in his sleep in Latin or possibly chicken. At your feet, oh, there's a dog. No one knows whose. It looks at you, then closes its eyes with a vibe that says sleep. Don't start drama. You're still wearing your shoes. Everyone is. Not for fashion. Because the floor is full of splinters and you may need to run if someone suddenly yells at 3 a.m. I dreamed my wife is a dragon blanket. Yes. A thick, slightly damp cloth that smells like a wooden cabinet left out in the rain for 6 months. You're sharing it with 2 people. Maybe 3. You're not sure there's someone giggling under the bed in their sleep. Could be the tavern boy. You close your eyes. You open them again because someone coughed. You close them. You open them again because a rooster crowed. Inside the room. And even though everything is damp, noisy, stuffy, and mildly concerning, You fall asleep. Because you're tired. Because of the beer. And because something about this place, the crackling fire below, the snoring, the mumbling voice claiming, "No, and the king," makes you feel peaceful. There is no glory here, no spring mattress, only people, warmth, laughter, and sleep shared with dogs, chickens, and weary souls. And if you're lucky, you'll still have both shoes by morning. Morning the next day, or at least when the sun rises and someone steps on you. You don't wake up. You are awakened by sunlight slipping through a crack in the wooden wall. A creaking sound beneath the floorboards, or the strange sensation that someone is lying across your shin. You open your eyes. The ceiling is so low you could headbutt your own reflection if you sit up too fast. The air is thick, as if yesterday's beer has evaporated and now lives inside your lungs. Across the room, someone is breathing with the intensity of a small demon. Another person rolls over and mumbles, "I couldn't get the cow," then continues sleeping. You ease yourself out from under the communal blanket, realizing the smell of yesterday's soup still lingers on your sleeve. The garlic scent from your dreams wasn't from your dreams. And one of your boots isn't yours, the other. It's been chewed. You step down the stairs, your foot tingling slightly. Good morning wooden splinters, and enter the main room, where the tavern looks like it just survived a party or a failed pirate raid. Chairs are overturned. A jug lies on its side, contents unknown. And the bard is asleep in the fireplace. Don't worry, it's unlit. The tavern keeper is already up. Of course he is. He's busy, wiping mugs with a cloth that may have once been someone's shirt last night, glaring at a patron trying to sober up by splashing well water on his face, stirring the morning soup, which is just last night's soup, now thicker, darker, and possibly suitable for bricklaying. The assistant looks like he's lived through 3 lifetimes just this morning. He silently clears the room, nudging tables back into place, and uses a spoon to gently slide a passed-out drinker off the table. Gracefully, like playing an instrument. A farmer opens his eyes, looks around, and says, "Where am I?" Another replies, "Must be heaven." Then both go right back to sleep. On the floor, looking quite content. You sit on a chair that still has all 4 legs and sip something warm without asking what it is. Might be watered-down ale, might be soup-flavored tea. Either way, you've survived, and maybe you've become part of the tavern now. Out there, the world is still cold. The ground is still muddy. Taxes are still high. But inside the tavern, there's fire. There's a morning drink. There are last night's ridiculous stories and you. And before you leave, the tavern keeper gives a slight nod. Not a goodbye, but an acknowledgement. You were here. You drank. You're still alive. Wonderful. Now we leave the tavern, brush the straw off our cloak, adjust our hood for dignity's sake, and shuffle toward the only place louder than a tavern afternoon, the medieval market. Where the food is strange, the shouts make no sense, and the smells are definitely not lavender. You step into the market like you've wandered into a dream that was left out in the sun for 3 days. It's set in the village center on muddy ground where every step produces a deep philosophical squelch. No one minds. They're busy, haggling, stretching over stalls, shouting like they're selling national secrets when in fact it's turnips. The first vendor cry you hear. Who wants dried fish, only dry on the outside, still alive inside? An old woman holds up a rooster. The rooster does not appear to agree with being held up. An elderly man is selling cheese covered in glowing mold. He claims it's prophecy cheese. Eat it and you'll see the future, or see something so bizarre you immediately pass out. In the far corner, a young man is selling daggers forged from metal salvaged from crushed helmets. As he pitches, he declares, "Can cut through anything except the law." You see fruit with questionable seasons, vegetables of mysterious origin, and pastries whose contents are best left unknown. You ask, and the vendor smiles. If you're still alive after eating it, they'll give you a discount next time. At the center of the market, a traveling storyteller stands atop an old ale barrel, still aromatic lute in hand, recounting a tale about a singing dragon. The fee. 1 coin or a sincere compliment. Nearby is the folk healing corner. An old herbalist is burning herbs and mumbling in very loose French. On her table, headache remedies, love potions, and something labeled "Make your neighbor's ears itch." Someone buys all 3, doesn't ask the price. And of course, at the far end of the market stands the philosophical debate corner. 3 old men, Mignon insists the earth is flat. Another swears it's round, and the third shouts, "We're living inside a whale's belly." No one wins. Everyone wins. Medieval philosophy. You're munching on a steaming pie, possibly almond and mystery filling, when a town crier rushes past ringing a bell. Public trial begins in 10 minutes, crime kissing the neighbor's wife without parish approval. A crowd immediately shifts direction. Here, entertainment doesn't require Netflix, just someone doing something stupid. The medieval market isn't a place for planned shopping. You come here to see something you'll never forget, buy something you didn't know you needed, and go home with a pie of mud stain and an unbelievable story. And as the vendor cries, echo, the laughter swells, and chickens flap in distress, you think, all right, he'll come back, just not eating anything that smells like burnt metal again. You leave the market with a full belly and arms full of items that at the time felt like wise purchases, but now you're not so sure. A heart-shaped turnip, a bottle of village-level anti-curse oil, and a pie that smells like a regrettable decision. The medieval afternoon sun isn't harsh, but it gently bakes the scent of sweat goats and overly enthusiastic crowds into your clothes like a historical perfume. You follow the dirt path back toward the village. A small crowd is gathering in front of the church, preparing for the local version of the St. Ging Festival, a wildly creative regional adaptation. They don't have a magic horse. They have a white-painted donkey with 2 wheels strapped to its sides, a cosplay effort best described as we did our best with 3 coins and a broken paintbrush. The whole village is preparing for the parade. Children have painted faces, adults wear paper hats, and the old man in charge of the drum somehow manages to play it while dozing off. Truly a skill. According to surviving records, village festivals in the Middle Ages occurred year-round, especially in Europe. From spring feasts, harvest celebrations, and saint days to days when people simply needed noise to forget the endless winter. A typical festival featured music, mostly off-key horns and drums, played to the beat of the player's heart. Parades rarely scripted, heavily improvised, with an open invitation. If you want to dress up as an onion, go for it. And then there were the games, wildly creative, wildly energetic, and occasionally banned the following year. You make your way to the games area where villagers are competing in throw the straw sack over the monk, a game that's both simple and theologically risky. Right beside it is an arm wrestling match between the village blacksmith and a widow. The blacksmith just lost. Everyone claps. Unclear whether it's for sportsmanship or because the widow is demanding a rematch. In another corner, a group of teens is playing blindfold bell striking, but since no one remembers where they hung the bell, they're currently fighting a goat. The goat is winning. You tiptoe toward the festival food stall. A huge pot is bubbling away, festival pottage, an upgraded version of boil whatever's in the kitchen. They've added beans, onions, breadcrumbs, and something with whiskers. Could be a turnip. Could be part of last year's costume. You receive a bowl, sit on a stone step, and watch the crowd flow by, laughing, dancing as someone exclaims, "I swear that cat just blessed me in Latin." Historians still debate how authentic these medieval festival games were. Some say every activity was steeped in deep ritual rooted in belief systems and agricultural cycles. Others argue that sometimes villagers just needed a good excuse to dance tipsily in public. And you holding a bowl of soup are starting to agree with the second group. Here's a little-known fact: many villages elected a festival king, a person crowned with flower pollen, whose only real power was being allowed to say anything absurd for 24 hours. And if you think that sounds like a silly tradition, welcome to Twitter circa 1327. The sky darkens. Oil lamps are lit around the village square. The air shimmers with soft light, the scent of hay, and the snores of the old man still napping beside the drum. You lean back against a wooden pillar, take a deep breath, and think, Medieval life may smell strange, may feature confusing games, and may include far more chickens than necessary. But in moments like this, it's beautiful in the most peculiar way. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but tonight there is fire, there is music, there is something vaguely edible, and there are people laughing with their whole bellies. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to breathe evenly in a festival twilight. Wonderful. And now we return to you, a bit full, a bit smoky, and a bit sore after a day of wandering markets, joining festivities, and witnessing a goat win an arm wrestling contest. Now you're heading home. And home is a generous term if you define it as a place with a roof of fire and strange noises at night that nobody investigates anymore because everyone's too tired. Your home is a traditional wooden cottage, or in other words, a giant box made of timber straw and sheer survival instinct. The walls are timber-framed, filled in with a mix of clay straw and cow hair, possibly containing a few family secrets. When it rains, the walls tend to breathe softly, meaning they get slightly damp and occasionally crumble a bit when you're not looking. The roof is thatched, woven by hand, and capable of housing a few mice living in organized communities, an owl who's decided this is a rent-free Airbnb, and absolutely no sound insulation. When the wind blows hard, the whole house hums like an old man with a cold. You push open the wooden door, it's not locked, because who would bother stealing from a place where the most valuable item is a wobbly chair? Inside, everything feels warm, by which we mean about 2 degrees warmer than outside and slightly less windy. You step into the main room, also the dining room, bedroom, workspace, and backup chicken coop. The only real separation is a curtain dividing your sleeping area from your parents' sleeping area, and occasionally your grandparents' too. At the center of the house is a sunken hearth lit since the afternoon. Smoke rises through a hole in the roof or finds its way out through cracks in the walls, gaps in the thatch, or sometimes your sleeve. The floor is packed earth smoothed over by shoes, footsteps, and blind optimism. Occasionally you throw straw over it to clean. This works about as well as spraying perfume on a wet chicken. But hey, at least it's slightly less muddy. Furnishings you've got: 1 wobbly table, 2 chairs, 1 made of actual wood and 1, let's just call it chair-shaped. A bed in the corner, wooden frame, woven ropes, and a straw mattress. Note: if you hear a soft pop when you sit down, don't worry. The bed's not broken, you just sat on a mouse that picked the wrong nap spot. On the wall hangs a wooden crucifix, a pouch of herbs to ward off colds, and a portrait of the Virgin Mary painted by someone who clearly didn't know how to draw hands. The kitchen corner is the most important place in the house. A large cast iron pot, always on the fire, a few wooden bowls, and 1 communal ladle that everyone warns with "don't lick that." The food is always in one of 3 conditions: simmering, saltier than expected, and almost definitely contains leftovers from the last meal. The attic, if you're one of the well-off, is where you store grain hibernate and escaped chickens. It's accessed by a wooden ladder tilted at the same angle as a drunk man's worldview. You exhale. The air is dry, warm, and filled with the scent of fire mixed with damp straw and aged cheese. Unpleasant, perhaps, but this is the smell of home. You take off your cloak, hang it on a wooden peg where a spider from the previous century may be judging you. Sit down and reach for the leftover soup from this morning or yesterday. You sip slowly, spoon by spoon, in the soft crackling of the hearth fire. No one speaks. No one needs to. This is the time of day when silence itself is healing. You crawl into bed beneath a thick straw blanket, fully dressed, with a dagger tucked beside your pillow for nighttime chicken attacks. The wind whistles through the thatched roof. Mice whisper in the kitchen corner. Your father's snoring echoes through the curtain like the drums of a springtime ritual. You close your eyes, and you know that in this slanted, low-ceilinged house that smells of smoke and earth, you are safe. Here, there is a roof. There is fire. There is bread hard as a monk's moral code. And there is you. Sleep. Tomorrow, you'll rise early again. Cook porridge. Chase chickens. Haul water. And maybe, just maybe, stop by the tavern. Just 1 mug. to start the day. You wake up before the rooster crows. Not because you're admirably hardworking, but because the rooster sleeps under your bed, and it had a sleep pee accident. You're awakened by a smell that makes you wonder if you're being tested for sainthood. You sit up, leaning against the cold wooden wall straw falling from your hair, and your knees creak with a loud crack that seems to ask, "We're doing this again?" Yes. A day in the fields. No holidays. No Saturdays. Only sun, soil, sweat, and a hoe forged from the collective sorrow of Europe's peasantry. You eat a quick breakfast, a piece of bread hard as a bishop's philosophy, and a spoonful of barley porridge flavored with smoke and quiet endurance. Outside, the fog still clings. The fields await wide slick and resembling a giant mud pie stomped on by God himself. You hoist your hoe, toss your cloak over your shoulder, and wade down the muddy village path, accompanied by the soundtrack of squelch, squelch, squelch. There it is, the field. The sun is peeking out, not yet shining, already smothered by clouds like a mother blocking bedtime stories past 9 p.m. You begin to dig. Each strike of the hoe feels like a negotiation with the earth. Please be soft today. The earth replies no. Medieval soil has some distinctive traits. It always has rocks. If you don't find rocks, you haven't dug deep enough. It keeps secrets. You might unearth pottery, old coins, or a tooth of unknown origin. It's never soft. Historians still debate whether medieval farmers ever had an easy day tilling. Most agree no. By mid-morning, your hands are numb. Sweat runs from your neck down your back. The wind cuts sideways, carrying the scent of hay-horse dung and a faint whiff of hope. You stop working and stretch your back only to instantly regret it. Your body creaks like a wooden cart about to snap in half. You drink water, or rather river water, filtered through your shirt. It tastes like last year. Next to you, your neighbor is plowing too. He doesn't speak. He doesn't smile. He just breathes heavily and curses the earth in 3 different languages, a surprisingly effective way to keep insects away. By noon, the sun breaks through. You sit in the shade of a bush, possibly a tree, possibly the nest of something you'd rather not identify. Lunch bread, cheese, and a bruised apple left over from the weekend market. And if you're lucky, a slice of bacon as thin as your landlord's promise to lower winter taxes. You eat quickly, not because it's delicious, but because flies. More digging ahead. Did we mention flies? Afternoon sets in. The sun is no longer gentle. It scorches the back of your neck like it's trying to bake human skin into pie crust. The ground is still hard. Your hands still ache. But you keep going. Because if you don't, you'll starve in winter. A medieval winter hunger isn't dieting, it's a farewell letter. You sow seeds. By hand. Because you can't afford proper tools. You press each seed into the earth, whispering like a prayer, grow. Please. Rise. Some of them will sprout. The rest will become dinner for mice birds, or the Lord testing your patience. You look up to see a group of children running across the field, yelling and chasing a goose wearing a paper crown. You don't ask. No one asks. That's just how it is. Maybe a game. Maybe a ritual. Maybe that goose is the newly elected Lord. You go back to digging. Clunk, your hoe strikes something. A shard of old pottery spiraled with faded patterns. You look around, then quietly put it back. Could be an artifact, or evidence from a 200-year-old crime scene. Either way, best not to dig deeper unless you want to be summoned to the village to answer way too many questions. Late afternoon. You stand. Your shadow stretches across the soil like a weary hero holding a hoe forged from collective frustration. You look at the field unfinished. That's fine. Tomorrow, more digging. Because in the medieval world, farming doesn't have a concept of done. Only that's enough for now. There's water to boil at home. You gather your tools. Walk slowly back toward the village. Your hands sting. Your shoulders ache. Your back feels like it's embedded with emotional splinters. But your heart is light. Because despite the toil, the dust, the poverty, you've done something. You planted hope into the earth. With your own hands. And in the medieval world, that was the one miracle you didn't need a priest to bless. A stormy day when the earth washes away, the sky weeps, and you try not to drown using sheer faith. The rain hits the thatched roof like someone's throwing buckets of water directly onto straw. No gentle breeze, no scattered droplets, just the liquid fury of nature pounding every wooden beam like your roof. Personally offended the weather gods. You open your eyes. The ceiling is leaking. You don't know where the water's coming from, only that it just dripped into your mouth. Congratulations, you've had your first sip of the day flavored with moldy wood smoky ash and a hint of disappointment. You sit up and look around. Your family is huddled around the hearth trying to start a fire with wet straw and hope. Your father mutters it's fine. Only the third storm this year. Your mother is moving the dry items onto the table since the floor hasn't been dry since 4 a.m. Your chicken, the one that survived the festival, is perched on the rafters looking down at you like a disapproving priest who knows you're going to sin. You open the door. The wind slaps you in the face like an emotional insult. Outside is a diluted version of your village. The road is now a trench. And the fields, oh your dear fields, they're no longer land. They've become a mud spa for drunken frogs. The villagers are gathered in the square, or what used to be the square, now repurposed as an unwilling public swimming pool. Everyone is soaked. Everyone is busy. Everyone is wearing something no one should wear in the rain. For example, thick wool cloaks or old wedding attire. Yes, that's a true story. The widower is wearing his late wife's dress to block the wind. Don't ask. At the front stands the village blacksmith, who also holds the title of loudest voice in town. He shouts, "The east levee's about to break. We need people to hold the water." You raise your hand because everyone else did. You're near the front of the crowd, and if you don't, you'll be volunteered to dive and check for damage. You're given a generous 10-minute break to drink something warm, but the tavern is closed because it's currently floating. You haul a sack, an empty sack. You have to go fill it yourself with wet, slippery earth and fish swimming underneath. Each shovelful feels like you're baking a cake made of mud and back pain. You and the rest of the group run along the levee. Ahead, the water rises like it's auditioning for the role of a mythological sea monster. White foam, red mud, and someone yelling, "Where's my duck?" Building a levee by hand involves no technique. Only throwing earth as fast as possible, praying like your life depends on it, and not getting swept away like a gnome in a folktale. You toss the first sack. It sinks. You toss the second. It floats in the wrong direction. The third one finally stays. You feel proud. Right before you slip, fall into the mud, and become covered from head to sole. The rain doesn't stop. Your hands are red and wrinkled like salted plums. The ground is slick. The water rushes. And for a brief moment you see ducks swimming by. Could be your neighbors. Could be a new line of prophets. Historians still debate the effectiveness of medieval emergency levees. Some say those sacks of earth saved villages. Others argue they just helped the flood pick up speed. A lesser-known fact, in some regions, villagers once used salted pork as temporary flood barriers. The result? The flood paused, but people rushed in hungry. Science has no conclusion, but the pigs were definitely not pleased. At last, the storm softens. The wind calms. The ground remains wet. The levee still stands stilted slightly, like someone recovering from a strong drink. You collapse onto a pile of wet straw. Doesn't matter anymore. You survived. The whole village slowly retreats, each person resembling a walking lump of mud. You go home. Your shoes are somewhere beneath the flood. Your shirt is heavier than armor, but your heart feels light. You did it. No one died, and the duck was returned. That evening you sit by the hearth rekindled with dry firewood that had been hidden under the bed. The whole family gathers around. No one speaks, not out of exhaustion, but because everyone's feet are warming in the same spot. You sip the last of the wine, taste the smoke, and think tomorrow the sun might return. Maybe the ground will dry. Maybe the plowing can resume. Maybe you'll go back to complaining about heavy hose and burning hands, but tonight, just sleep deeply and hope the ceiling doesn't collapse. Perfect. Now go ahead, sit down by the fire, grab a piece of bread if there's any left, and brace yourself. Because today the entire village is going to court. And the reason, a loaf of bread, half-eaten, and no one will admit it, except the ghost. Welcome to a medieval village trial where everyone is a witness, a suspect, and a potential baker. The morning began like every other, the smell of smoke, the sound of chickens, and a piercing scream from old Bertha, the village's eldest baker, and the only person capable of yelling through 3 layers of wattle and daub. Who ate my bread? I left it in the oven. Overnight. Now, half is gone. No one took it. It was a ghost. I swear. The whole village gathered after breakfast, still with bits of porridge clinging to their chins, to hear Bertha recount the tragedy with the emotional intensity of a Greek drama. This wasn't just any loaf. It was festival bread made with the finest wheat, sweetened with honey, studded with dried fruit and hope. And now, half of it was gone. And, as with every well-organized medieval community with plenty of free time, they decided to hold a trial. In the village center, by the well, next to the goat the silent witness, judge the village priest, defense lawyer none, jury everyone present. Bertha took the stand. She baked the bread last night. She left it to cool on a stone ledge beside a lit candle and a protective prayer. She went to sleep. She awoke to find half the loaf missing. No crumbs, no footprints, no physical evidence. So, what else could it be but a ghost? Witnesses were called. Jacob the blacksmith said he heard clinking sounds during the night. Turned out he had fallen asleep next to his hammer. Elsa the milkmaid said she saw a white figure. Later admitted it was her own unwashed nightgown hanging on a peg. Peter, a 7-year-old boy, testified he saw the bread float into the air, but also admitted he dreamed he was a dragon. The priest cleared his throat and spoke solemnly. It could be a fox. It could be a thief. But if it is a wandering soul, then I must perform a cleansing ritual. It requires incense. It requires wine. And I'm out of wine, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Consecrated wine was no small matter. A theory was proposed. Maybe Bertha ate it and forgot. Bertha immediately raised her cane with violent intent. No one brought it up again. And so the village divided into factions. The Ghosts are real faction led by Bertha, 2 widows, and a bored school child. The Big Rat faction headed by young Peter, featuring a fat cat as living proof. And the I don't care, just let me eat the rest faction, which spoke for itself. Finally, a voice rang out. It was old Hans, who hadn't spoken in 11 years unless absolutely necessary. Maybe the cat. All eyes turned to the fat cat now sleeping peacefully on top of the remaining half-loaf, its belly puffed up like a pillow. 1 second of silence. Then a long collective, "Ooh!" The court's verdict, no evidence of ghosts. No human admitted to eating the bread, except maybe the cat. The trial was closed. However, to calm the spirits, the priest still performed a light cleansing using old incense and rainwater caught in a bucket. Bertha agreed to bake the bread again, this time hiding it better. As for the cat, it was pardoned and promoted to official bread inspector cat of the village. It was given a tiny hat, and everyone bowed when passing it, mostly because it refused to move from the middle of the road. Little known fact. In some parts of medieval Europe, animals were indeed put on trial. Pigs, chickens, even fleas. Charges ranged from disturbing public order to theft, or even making people laugh during Mass. Historians still debate. Were these real trials or a form of community education? As for you, you think either way. It's better than a parent-teacher meeting. By the afternoon, the village returned to normal. Children played tag around the well. The adults resumed discussing harvest plans. And the cat slept, one paw resting on the new loaf. You curled up under the porch, chewing on stale bread, and wondered, maybe a ghost did stop by, but saw the bread wasn't fully baked and left disappointed. You woke up to the frantic tolling of church bells, not for Mass, not for a wedding. Plague. The 3rd outbreak this year, if you're still counting. Your neighbor yelled through the straw fence, "Father says shut the doors. Anyone coughing is considered guilty." You hadn't said a word yet. Then you coughed. Just a little, very softly, but too late. A goat looked at you suspiciously. The cat retreated, and you began to feel just a little bit alone. You'd heard the rumors. About the healer who never looks you in the eye, about the man who perfumes death, about someone who sees everyone as already infected. And now, he stands before you, real, and reeking of camphor. That long beak-like mask isn't for fashion. Inside are herbs, lavender, vinegar-soaked garlic, and sometimes dried orange peel. The idea if death travels through the air, then sniffing pleasant things will block the plague. It doesn't work, but at least the patient dies with a nicer scent. The plague doctor doesn't say much. He nods. Each nod seems to say, "I've seen this before." He opens his leather bag and pulls out a vial of oddly colored liquid hard to describe. A curved iron rod used to tap bones or skull sits unclear. A handwritten book containing ointment recipes, prayers, and a list of the dead. You cough. He looks at you. You cough again. He steps half a pace back, pulls out the vial, sprays your hand, then sprays the wall, the door, the cat. Prevention, he says. You ask, "What can I do to get better?" He opens the book, flips a few pages, nods. Drink musk water, mix it with vinegar, inhale smoke from fig root, and don't stare at anyone too long. You nod back. He takes out a dried pigeon egg, places it gently into your hand. Carry it, for luck. You're not sure if it's a gift or a prophecy. In the village, everyone avoids him, not because they fear him, but because the statistics are grim. Whoever he visits a grave is dug a few days later, but still they invite him, because he's the last hope after holy water and moldy bread have run out. He goes door to door, taking notes, spraying tinctures, handing out charms. Sometimes teaching a particularly special remedy, boiled onion water plus smoked goat hide plus 7 prayers. You ask if it works. He replies, "No one's made it past day 3, but the 4th person lived to 90. Once he treated a feverish child, placed a scented pouch on the forehead, wrapped garlic around the ankles, soaked the hands in lemongrass water. The illness remained, but the room smelled like an ancient perfume shop. Modern historians suggest that these doctors, strange as they were the earliest models of organized medical care. They kept records, had something resembling procedures, and wore identifiable uniforms. Although others argue, they were more like sorcerers than physicians. But at least they showed up. As night falls, the doctor leaves the village. He walks into the mist, his silhouette etched against the ashen sky. No one sees him off. Only the startled clucks of chickens and a few howling dogs trail behind. You watch him go, heart a mix of gratitude, unease, and a lingering question, where does he go when he's not healing? To a place where no one coughs. Or into the woods where the trees whisper what he can't forget. Either way, you know this. Tomorrow, you will rise again. You'll spray herbs around your bed, keep the pigeon egg under your pillow, and still believe that if God, moldy bread, and a masked man stand with you, you just might survive this plague. Brave of you. Because tonight we step into one of the strangest anti-plague rituals ever recorded, where religion, superstition, and roast chicken all share the same moonlight. And you are standing in the middle of it with a dew-soaked cloak, bare feet, and a look that silently asks, am I curing the illness or inviting it in? When the villagers decide to negotiate with the plague with barbecue and improvised dancing, it all began as a whisper. We've already prayed. We've already burned incense. We've already wrapped garlic around the house. And still the plague coughed. So why not try something new? The village witch, self-declared or perhaps ordained by the suspicious number of times she survived 3 plagues, proposes a plan. We hold a banishment ritual, not to drive the sickness away, but to negotiate with it. Some raise eyebrows, negotiate with disease. She nods. It is a wandering spirit. If we offer it good food, it will choose a different village. So on a misty October night, the whole village gathers in an open field. Fires are lit in a circle. Chickens are roasted on spits. Strong wine is poured into wooden cups, and in the center, a single empty chair draped in black cloth facing the flames. For the uninvited guest, the witch explains. No one laughs. The ritual begins with drums 3 beats, then a pause. The young hold torches, the elders blow horns, and everyone dances around the fire to a rhythm no one practiced, staggering steps. skirts dragging through mud. An old man falls into the wine barrel. No one stops. They stay on beat even if off tune. When the fire roars its highest, the witch steps forward holding a piece of roast chicken. She kneels, lifts it to the sky and speaks. "O suffering spirit, we offer you this meal so that you may eat well and leave us be. We've endured enough. Go to a richer village, a cleaner one with less shouting." The whole village nods, in agreement. Some clap, some weep, possibly from the smoke. And then, the wind picked up. A scarf flew into the fire. A cat let out a long, eerie cry. An old woman sneezed. Everyone stepped back. The witch stood still. Her lips moved, whispering an ancient incantation, or possibly a stew recipe no one was close enough to tell. After 3 circles around the fire, 2 near falls, and 1 almost scorched beard, the ritual ended. Silently, they divided the remaining roast chicken. A portion was buried. For the spirit to eat later, the witch explained. No one objected. That night, no one had a fever. No one coughed. The cat slept soundly. And by morning, the illness remained. But somehow, everyone felt lighter, as if simply doing something, no matter how absurd, was already a way of surviving. Modern historians still debate whether such rituals were disease prevention healing practices or just mass psychological responses. Some say we've yet to fully understand the intersection of belief and health. Others argue, at least it was more fun than a vaccine. And you stayed behind after the ceremony, holding a chicken bone in your hand, unsure what to believe except for the warmth of hearing your entire village sing into the night. Even offbeat, even off-key, even dancing like they'd all just been stung by wasps. But everyone laughed. And sometimes that's the only thing that keeps a plague from winning. You arrive at the village market just as sunset brushes the rooftops. The last light of day stretches like a wet laundry line draped over the thatched houses, and before you see the seller, you hear the first shout. Medicine for everything, from fever to sorrow, from coughs to curses. You push through the crowd, step on an onion, sidestep a goose, and finally you're standing before a tattered velvet-covered cart, covered in glass bottles of all shapes and colors, from mossy green like moldy bread to deep indigo, like the priest's most ominous sermon. The seller is an old manor, an old woman. No one is quite sure, draped in a black and brown cloak, or possibly just mud hair, silver like ash eyes gleaming like someone who's lived through 4 separate plagues. In front of them, a special bottle stands, proudly. The handwritten label reads, "Cures fevers, eases pain, rekindles lost love, and banishes kitchen ghosts. Ingredients, snail shell, wheatgrass, root, and 1 widow's tear." You ask, how do you collect a widow's tear? They look at you, wink, and say, "That's the secret. Some sell their sorrow. I buy it, not cheap." You fall silent, not because you're moved, but because the bottle is softly glowing. They're not alone. Next to them, a woman sells anti-possession wine. Beside her, an elderly man peddles charms to stick on your forehead and stop nightmares or stop your ex-husband's ghost from asking for rice. A young man shouts from a corner, hawking spirit-repelling candles made from beeswax and garlic. The smoke rising smells oddly like scallion soup and knocks a nearby cat unconscious. In the center of the market is the blessing table. Anyone can step up, yell the name of their affliction, and toss a coin into a large blackened cauldron. One cries, "stomach pain," another yells, "unrequited love." One simply stands, says nothing, and weeps before tossing in a coin. The cauldron echoes like a drum from the soul. Sometimes the sound returns as laughter, sometimes as wind, and sometimes you swear it comes back as a sob from deep underground. Modern historians still debate whether these kinds of healing festivals were expressions of folk religion or simply early prototypes of emotional marketing. Some say in a world without doctors or science, belief itself was the prescription. Others furrow their brows. They sell tears, so who's verifying the quality of those tears? No one's answered that yet. You hold the bottle of medicine, give it a gentle shake. It clinks like a tiny bell. The scent, a strange mix of mint vinegar and unresolved emotion. You don't know if it can cure anything, but that night you sleep better. Maybe it's belief. Maybe it's the cool air. Maybe it's because you spent your last 3 coins and now have nothing left to worry about. The next morning, the stall is gone. No footprints, no trash, no goose. Only a scrap of paper remains written in red ink. If you feel better, don't thank me. If not, maybe try loving someone again. You laugh and cough, but a soft cough, a trusting cough. The kind of cough that says, "I'm healing." All right then, dear friend, tonight we journey to a very different kind of evening. No scent of herbal medicine. No knock on the door from a doctor in a beaked mask, but rather the sound of goat-skin drums echoing in the village square, cheers and squeals, pig grunts, children sprinting across sacred offerings, and the village priest sighing for the 12th time. Because today is a wedding. And not just any wedding, a village wedding. And when 2 people marry, the whole village plans, debates, and picks the food. You wake to the sound of a rooster, not your own, but from a cage set out in the yard as the wedding bell. Someone decided if a rooster crows 3 times over the bride's head, the marriage will last at least 1 harvest. You step outside to see the village gate adorned with garlic strands, wildflowers, and ribbons cut from repurposed soldier uniforms, washed clean or close enough. The bride is the blacksmith's daughter, curly hair, sharp eyes, hands strong as hammers. The groom is someone not everyone remembers by name, but the village likes them, because they argue less than their parents did, and because his family owns a very large oven. Naturally, it's chosen to host the wedding cake, or rather, a loaf of bread 3 times the size of a head stuffed with apples and cheese baked until it smells like joy. The wedding preparations take 3 days, because first the astrologer must be consulted. He says, the best day is today or next year. The village chooses today immediately. They've already slaughtered the pig. Next music. The flutist has a cold, so he's replaced by a boy scraping a fiddle bow over a wooden box. It sounds like a cat with indigestion but has rhythm. Just enough for elders to nod and children to dance offbeat with confidence. Attire. The bride wears a white wool tunic slightly smudged with soot, a sign of a good homemaker. On her head, a wreath made of fragrant herbs and 2 dried quail eggs, symbols of fertility. The groom dons a gray tunish his father's, worn once for a wedding, twice in winter, 3 times for festivals, and hasn't torn anywhere critical. The ceremony begins when the priest steps onto the stone platform in the village square, the same one used for rituals, arguments, and spontaneous songs. He clears his throat, then says, "Today, before God and that pile of roasted chickens, we bless these 2 and wish them peace, unless the crops fail." The bride bows her head. The groom looks at his feet. The priest continues, "If anyone objects to this marriage, speak now. Silence, or forever hold your peace." A child coughs. Their mother clamps a hand over their mouth. Crisis averted. After the blessing came the rituals, tying the couple's hands with a small rope symbolizing unity and a mutual agreement to be tied together every planting season. Drinking from a shared wooden cupa honey-infused wine so strong that the groom's grandmother passed out after the first sip. And finally, cutting the wedding bread with a sickle, a tool meant for both wheat and love. The feast began with appetizers, salted eggs, raw radish, and grape wine that hadn't fully fermented. Then came the main dishes: roasted meat, barley soup, garlic-buttered bread, and a dish no one could quite identify but was proudly called a tradition since great-great-grandma got lost in the woods for 3 days. Dessert was crispy roasted chestnut cake. If you bit into a burnt nut, it was said to be a sign you'll soon marry someone you don't like. One young man immediately spat his piece out. As they ate, the entertainment began. An elderly man read love poems in poorly conjugated Latin. A group of youths competed to shout the names of their ex-lovers. A girl performed the harvest dance, mostly skipping in circles and pretending to drop a hoe. And the village dog ran around with a ribbon on its back reading, "Love conquers plague." Historians still argue whether such village weddings had legal meaning or were just communal therapy in times of famine. Some say marriage was a contract between 2 people and a sweet potato. Others claim the village chose who married whom based on cooking skill and stable cleaning ability. And honestly, they might not be wrong. Night fell. The wine flowed. The music lost tempo. The laughter grew louder. The groom passed out at the table. The bride shook him awake, reminding him they still had to clean up the dishes, because even married tomorrow was still harvest day. You left the wedding with a full belly and a garlic clove tied to your back, a charm for marital success. You had no idea how much you drank, only that in that final moment watching the couple laugh together under the moonlight, you thought they'll be all right. At least until the rainy season. And then as the fire of this story dims like the last embers in the hearth, your eyelids begin to grow heavy. Not out of exhaustion, but because your spirit has just traveled far from strange village markets to moonlit weddings, from snail shell potions to offbeat dancing beneath the stars. The wedding drums have faded. The roast chicken has gone cold, that massive loaf of bread. Someone's probably tucked the rest under the bed for breakfast. The bride, the groom, the blacksmith, the herbalist, with the mysterious stare, they're all drifting into that peculiar medieval sleep, rough, bone-tired, and yet somehow deeply comforting. And you lying here in the present day, you may not be wearing a garlic wreath or sipping honey wine, but you too have taken a little journey tonight. No ticket required. Just a pair of headphones, a touch of imagination, and a rhythm of storytelling as soft and glowing as ash in the wind. So now take a deep breath. Let it go. Leave behind the laughter, the chaos, the strange soups, and the bread-baked love stories. You're back in your bed. No plague. No suspicious doctors in bird masks. No pigs sprinting through the wedding feast. Just you. A quiet night. And these last few moments to relax your shoulders, close your eyes, and sleep well. Because who knows, maybe in your dreams you'll be invited to another wedding. But next time, let's hope you don't have to dance the falling hoe waltz. Sleep peacefully, my friend. There are more stories to come, and he'll be here waiting for you in the next one.